Hello and welcome to our very first lunch break lesson. Today we're going to talk about common grammar errors. English grammar can be very difficult to master because it contains a lot of irregularities. English is actually made up of many different languages. Let's start off with the Celtic migration from 1000 BC. The Celts migrated from the European mainland to Britain. They introduced the continuous tense, which you'll find in words like working, sitting, liking, eating. They also introduced the name of the capital Londinium, which of course later became London. The Roman occupation of England took place from 43 BC to 410 AD. They brought about a Latin influence to the English language. There are around 200 Latin words that were passed on by Roman merchants and soldiers. Today, many of them are spelt differently, but they still exist. Words like wine, candle, or wall. In the 500s, the Catholic Church brought many more words that we still use commonly today. For example, altar, school, fork, spider, tower, and rose. In the late 400s came the Germanic settlements, and they brought about an Anglo-Saxon influence to the language. Approximately 1/3 of the Anglo-Saxon vocabulary survives into modern English, and it includes everyday words such as earth, house, food, sing, night, and sleep. By the 7th century, Latin speakers started to refer to Britain as Anglia, which was basically the land of the Anglos, and that word, of course, later developed into England. In the late 700s to the 1000s came the Viking invasions. They brought about an Old Norse influence. They introduced almost 2,000 new words which constitute 1% of today's English. Words like anger, awkward, cake, die, egg, and smile. From the 1000s to 1154, we saw the French or Norman invasions. They introduced an Anglo-Norman or Old French influence. The Normans transformed English culturally as well as linguistically, and French became the language spoken by royalty. French was also used in political documents, administration, and literature. Latin was still the language of the church and of scholars, but most of the general population spoke a form of English. A 100 Years' War was fought between France and Britain from 1337 to 1450. Many people regarded French as the language of the enemy, and they stopped using it. And this is when the status of the English language started to rise. In the 1400s to 1600s, we saw the Renaissance mixing, when French, Latin, Greek, and Italian words continued to enter the language. Now, during this time, in 1476, Caxton introduced the printing press. In the following 150 years, around 20,000 books were printed, and printers had to make a choice: which words, grammar, and spelling to use. The choices that these printers made helped to set and spread a standard English language across the country. From the 1600s, we saw the empire imports. Let's look at a few. From Spain, we have tomato, potato, and tobacco. From Turkey, we have coffee, yogurt, and kiosk. The Arabic languages gave us words like jar, magazine, and sherbet. And the Malay language gave us bamboo, caddy, and ketchup. African language brought us banjo, chemistry and safari. Americans, Eskimo, husky and raccoon. And the South Americans brought us words like coyote, shack and mole. From the mid-1700s to the mid-1800s, we saw the Industrial Revolution. Discoveries in medicine, botany, engineering, etc. brought about many new technical terms. A new word such as biology, caffeine, centigrade, watt, chromosome, and claustrophobia entered our language. From the 1900s, wars, technology and globalisation brought about much of today's common terms used in business and homes. So there you have it, a little explanation about how and why the English language became so complicated. That's why you will have difficulty with spelling and with construction of sentences and grammar. It's a difficult language to learn, so don't be too hard on yourself. All right, let's do a little grammar test. If you don't have a pen and paper, pause the video now and go and get them. Read the questions on the next 10 screens and choose the correct grammar in each sentence. If you want to find the answers, you'll have to wait until the next video comes out. Are you ready? Number 1. Tetsuo spent 4 hours laying or lying on the beach. Now he looks like a cooked lobster. Each of those car parks belong or belongs to a vice president of the company. The pens are no longer lying or laying on the table because every one of them have fallen or has fallen off. The new accountant and her husband lives in central Tokyo. The boss gave my colleague and myself, tickets to the football grand final this weekend. I wish I were going on the trip to Paris with you. Sensational sushi, that or which Japan is famous for, is the first thing which or that tourists seek out when visiting the country. Either Futoshi or Miho is or are going to finish the project. HR spent the next 6 months looking for someone as different than or different from the last manager as possible. The chaos in the office had little affect or effect on her, but the lack of good management affected or affected her dramatically. All right, how did you go? Now, to check your answers, you need to watch the next lunch break lesson video. They will be revealed at the end. But let me know in class if you need to discuss any of these answers. Okay, bye for now.